Hello and welcome to Switch Scheme. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I started watching this video by the background NPC and her reasons for why she feels the Switch 2 is the last straw, she's done with Nintendo. And I think it's a very interesting perspective that I want the broader YouTube community who's into Switch to kind of see and listen to. I don't obviously agree with everything she says. I've only listened to the first maybe 5 minutes of this, and there's already been a couple things I'm kind of like, okay, I hear you, but you know, I might feel differently. But I'm coming from a different perspective, right? I'm almost an 80% PC gamer. I do play on my Switch the other obviously 20% of the time, but it's usually like in bed, just kind of laying there trying to play something for an hour before I go to sleep. Currently playing through a second run through of Unicorn Overlord and Cyberpunk on the Switch 2. But I wanted to see your guys' thoughts on this, and I wanted to add my own perspective from someone who's coming at this from a different lens. I grew up on Nintendo, right? I got an NES when I was 3 or 4. That then got broken because I shoved a sandwich into it thinking I could make a grilled cheese. That turned into me getting a Super Nintendo because my dad at the time was like, hey, now I have an excuse to buy the new one. And then I went from that to an N64 to a GameCube. And then after the GameCube, I broke out into Xbox 360, stuff like that. I didn't actually go through the Wii U era. And then I came back to the Switch when the Switch was released because I got shipped overseas to go do training overseas, and I was like, I kind of want something to play on the go. So I got a Switch Lite, and then now I have a shelf here with maybe 250 games on it, and I love the Switch. So that's a little history on where I am, but I kind of wanted us to listen to this. I want us to give us some viewpoints. I want to hear your perspectives down below. Obviously, give her a follow, give her a like. This is, from what I've understood, a great video. I did see Asmongold reacted to it, so you know it's got traction. But yeah, let's go ahead and see what her perspectives are, and I'll add in my my thoughts as we go along.
So the Switch 2 is out, and honestly, I wish I could say I was excited. I really wanted to be excited, like many 90s babies.
So real quick, I already am hearing this a lot from the Switch community. There's her link there if you want to go check her out, or excuse me, her tag. A lot of people were saying the Switch 2 isn't living up to the expectations of what people want. I've been seeing videos from like RGT talking about the screen breaking, stuff like that. My Switch 2 is on my bed charging. I've had none of these issues. I do find it a little cumbersome because I primarily play handheld to hold, but again, I have small hands. That's a me problem. But yeah, her sentiment about being really excited, I think a lot of people felt that way, but I also personally believe people are overhyping what they were expecting from a Switch 2. When the Switch 2 was coming and eventually announced, I never expected it to be like a drastic change. Like, we're talking from GameCube to Wii, right? We went from a normal console with these stupid little discs to the Wii, which was motion controls, all these cool gimmicks and stuff. I didn't want that. I wanted a more powerful Switch. That's all I wanted. I didn't care about anything else. I was like, you know what? I love the Switch as it is. Just give me the Switch, but better. Give me an Xbox, but a 360. Give me a PS4, but a 5. The same concept. Give me the same bones and just put better muscles on it. And for me, this is why I wanted to do this, is because for me, the Switch 2 is exactly what I asked for. So let's go.
Babies, I grew up on Nintendo. They were my very first gaming love. And not just the games, but the feeling of them. The wonder, the warmth, the way they pulled you into a world and made it feel like home. Ocarina of Time was the one that really awoke something in me.
I did not like Ocarina of Time. I've never been a big Zelda fan. I know a lot of you are like, what the hell? Breath of the Wild, I like that more than Tears of the Kingdom. But I like Link's Awakening, the remake, more than Breath of the Wild. I'm a strange person when it comes to Zelda. I hear her point. I know a lot of people got into Nintendo because of Ocarina of Time. The huge buzz it got when it came out. Totally get it, but just real quick, not my thing. Oh, also, I didn't add this, but when I was going through all the systems I played, yes, I had a Game Boy Pocket. That's how I got introduced to Pokemon. And then I got a Game Boy Advance, SP, DS. Huge handheld fan, which is also, again, why the Switch resonated with me.
Opening in Kokiri Forest with the Deku Tree, riding Epona across Hyrule Field, it all felt so massive. Like a real world was tucked inside a little cartridge. And then Majora's Mask came along, and my little self had never felt such anxiety. That eerie moon, the ticking clock, the emotional side quests that made you care so much in so little time. It was the very first game that made me feel something beyond just fun. It was sad, confusing, kind of strange at times, and very deep. It wasn't just Zelda. I was obsessed with Super Mario 64, running wild through Peach's castle, jumping into paintings, discovering every secret star. That game felt like true freedom. And then there were classics like Kirby's Dream Land, Yoshi's Story, Donkey Kong 64, Star Fox, Metroid Prime, all
So she has a very similar playlist to me as when I was that age. The only thing I would add is, again, I didn't really go for Ocarina of Time. My first N64 game was actually Jet Force Gemini. My adoptive mother at the time had gotten her tax return, and because part of the tax return was because of me, because she now had a child, she would always buy me something really nice with it, because she understood, like, hey, the only reason I'm getting X back is because of him, which I liked. That was always appreciated. I do appreciate that she did that for me. And I got an N64 with Jet Force Gemini. That was the game I started with, and I'm telling you right now, little like 10, 11-year-old me never beat that game. Loved it, never beat it.
completely different and wonderful in their own way. And every one of them had a vibe, a soul, that Nintendo spark that made it feel like you weren't just playing, you were being let in on something very special. And then my parents bought me the original DS, and just like that, the whole thing was cracked wide open for me. That's how I found Animal Crossing Wild World, and I was hooked. I spent hours in that little village, rearranging furniture, writing letters, fishing for red snappers, and visiting my best friend's town during our weekly sleepovers. Even now, just hearing the soundtrack makes me very emotional. It takes me right back to those quiet, cozy afternoons after school.
You know what? I'm so glad she mentions this, and I'm not trying to plug my own video while we're reacting to hers, but I literally just released a couple weeks ago my top 10 most nostalgic soundtracks in video games because of exactly what she just said. There's something about music and how it evokes those memories in your mind. It's like a key to unlock the doors to things that have happened in the past. And I 100% agree. I'm gonna get her off the weird looking face. I'm 100% agree with her that, yeah, there's something about having a song come on from a game you played when you were younger, and that song just triggers emotional response from you, whether you want it or not, right? You could be having a great day, a fabulous day, and for me, if like the original Pokemon Pallet Town theme song comes on, it's like a brick right here. Not sadness, but like, holy crap, man, I remember those days sitting on a beanbag with my friend Garrison at daycare after school in the 6th grade, Game Boy Pockets, black and white screens, looking over each other's shoulder. What'd you find? What'd you find? And yeah, no, she is 100% correct. There is just something about music, man, and it just hits you so hard.
Curled up with that clunky silver DS with nowhere else that I needed to be. Truly the epitome of nostalgia. I didn't know it then, but those games were helping to shape how I saw everything. Stories, characters, even myself, and for a while it really felt like Nintendo understood how to make something that mattered. And it didn't stop there. I basically owned every major Nintendo console, starting with the N64, GameCube, Wii, DS,
I own
3DS,
those minus the Wii.
even the Wii U, which in my humble opinion, was ahead of its time, by the
And
way.
I didn't
But
have
I
the
owned
Wii.
all of them. And when the Switch was announced with Breath of the Wild, I was beyond excited. Like, very cringely crying at the announcement trailer excited. As a Zelda fan, it was everything I'd ever wanted in a game, and to this day, it is still one of my favorites. That launch brought back so much of the old magic, which is probably why I held on for so long, and I even wanted to work for them. Like, genuinely. I applied to corporate Nintendo PR jobs probably 15 to 20 times. I'm not even exaggerating. Back in 2019, I was pursuing PR, and
I think for a lot of people, especially those of us who grew up with Nintendo, at one point wanted the same thing. Right, we wanted to work for this company, and especially what was it, mid 2010s, when was it Iwata? I don't remember if it was Iwata, but remember the Wii U was struggling, and instead of laying people off or letting people go, he understood that, hey, failure starts at the top. So he took a pay cut, or I don't remember if he took a pay cut or if he denied his bonus. He did something. I remember he did something. I want to say it was a pay cut, so that way the employees could all basically stay afloat, and that way the company wouldn't go under because of the massive failure of the Wii U. That makes you want to work for a company like that. Hearing a story like that, you're like, wow, You know, this is a company who values the employees enough to say, hey, look, we know we work you like a dog, we know we have strict deadlines, we know we do this, we know this is happening. The unfortunate truth of Japanese work culture. But on the flip side, when we fail, it's not your fault, it's my fault. I did not lead you in the right way. I did not give you the tools. I did not do what I need. So like her, I also at one point, of course, dreamed to work for Nintendo, to work for a company where when I'm hearing stories like that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that's what I want. You know why? Because like my current company, they laid me off because they outsourced my job to the Philippines. I'm unemployed now. Imagine if I had worked for Nintendo and there was a downfall in profit, I may have felt a little bit more secure in where I was going in my career. So no, 100%. I never did applications for corporate Nintendo. I will admit I never had done that. But you know, hey, if you guys need a expert at customer service.
When I got the opportunity to go to E3 that year, the very last E3 by the way, I actually spoke with the Nintendo PR team in person. It was magical. The Nintendo section of the event was so overwhelming and electric, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I want, and this is what I want to be a part of. So please, hear me out. What we are about to discuss isn't coming from someone who's out to bash Nintendo. This is coming from someone who genuinely, wholeheartedly, even at times, very cringely, loved Nintendo and their games, and really believed in what I thought they stood for.
So here we go.
Over time, I've started to realize that maybe Nintendo isn't the company I thought they were. What I've seen over the last few years is that my nostalgia goggles have been working overtime, and they've kept me from really seeing the true nature.
So I want to try to forego what I think she's going to say here, because I do see other people feel this way, right? We have the stories coming out of how, like I had mentioned earlier, how they work their employees like a dog to try to get deadlines met. The increase in game prices, right? The biggest one obviously being Mario Kart. Mario Kart World is $80 to buy it by itself, but it is a $50 pack-in with the Switch. Now, obviously they're using it as a system pusher, right? They're trying to push the system. It's easier for them to push a system because now once you have the system, you're more likely to buy more software and games, which is where a lot of their money is going to come from. So I get that. But the fact is, optically, you're telling me as a consumer, I have to pay an extra $30, maybe we'll say 20, because I guess not being packed in, maybe it would have been 60. I have to pay an extra $20 on top of the Switch I got, while someone else only has to pay 50. That doesn't feel fair. That doesn't feel consumer friendly. The game key situation. Now, I'm very different on the game key situation. I know people hate them, and I totally understand people hate game keys. There are aspects of game keys that I don't like, but I look at them at the same way as I do digital games, right? There's no difference between a game key and a digital, except now I own a cartridge that I can now resell to someone else so they have access to the same game. To me, that's the difference. And I get that some people are still like, yeah, but you still don't own the game. And you're right. You're 100% right, right? We want DRM free downloads and stuff like that so we can own these games. That's why, what is it, GOG? I love GOG. You know, when they had the Resident Evil Dino Crisis bundle, I scooped that up because now I can own them. I have the PS1 discs still sitting in my room, but I don't have a PS1. So it's like, I want to play them, but I want to own them. I don't want to buy the license to use them. And I get that that's the business, and that's the business that we're going to, but that's never been how it felt from Nintendo. And I don't know if that's what she's going to talk about or one of the points she's going to make, but that's how I felt, right? When I look over at my desk, or at my shelf, I have 4 Switch 2 games, right? I have 4. I have Cyberpunk, Mario Kart, Bravely Default, and Yakuza 0. Cyberpunk is all on the cartridge. Mario Kart is on the cartridge. Yakuza is a game key. And oddly, Bravely Default is a game key. And what confuses me is Cyberpunk, being this huge, grandiose game, is on the cartridge. I own that game. I will be able to play that game whenever I want. Bravely Default, which is arguably maybe a third of the size, maybe even less, someone had calculated it, of Cyberpunk, is a game key. Why is that not on the cartridge? It would all fit on the cartridge. There's no one would deny that game could fit there. Why? It's because the third-party publisher is saying, we'll give them the game key because we don't want to give them the game. And to me, it's hard for me to point the finger at Nintendo, right? It's hard for me to say, Nintendo, you're the reason this is happening. And I don't necessarily believe that's 100% true, because I look at it this way. Had they said, no, we're not going to do game keys, maybe Square said, okay, well then Bravely Default's just going to be a digital only game. We won't even release a physical. And then I would have to go to limited run games or something like that to try to get a physical of it. We don't know. On the flip side, you could also argue, well, maybe now they're going to feel forced that they have to do a physical. But because they have the option of a game key, now they don't have to do a full physical, they can just do that. That's also a very valid argument, 100%. And I don't recall, but I saw somewhere, I don't know if it's RGT. Again, RGT is one of the YouTubers that I really like and respect. His channel, I watch him all the time, even though his thumbnails are hilarious. I don't remember if it was him, but he made a comment about how third-party sales for Switch 2 games are just in the dirt right now. And game keys are 100% the problem. Why? Because if you look at Amazon, all of the reviews on Amazon for all these games, these awesome games, mind you, right? Bravely Default Remastered, great game. Bravely Default is one of the best RPGs we got during that era. But you want to know why that game is failing right now? And why it has horrible reviews? Isn't even because of the game, it's because of the fact that it's a game key. The other thing is also, what was it, Split Fiction? Split Fiction's not even in there. It's just a code in a box. That is so aggravating. Stuff like that is so aggravating. But again, who's really to blame here? Is it Nintendo's fault for permitting it to happen? Or is it the third-party publisher who decided to say that's what they want to do? I don't know what other point she's going to make, because again, I want to hear her perspectives, but that's where I think we're going, at least at some point, because that seems to be the #1 contention with the Switch 2, other than obviously the cost. So let's go.
Of a company that I once held so dear to my heart. So let's dive in. And let's start with the release of the Switch 2. It's officially out now, and sales are booming. Records are being broken, and over 3 million units were sold worldwide on release day. People are also loving Mario Kart World, and I'm genuinely very happy for them. Yes, the game looks like a lot of fun. I just wish I felt something, because more than anything, I just feel tired. At $450 or $500 if you get it bundled with Mario Kart World, this doesn't feel like a celebration of the next chapter. It feels like Nintendo seeing how far they can stretch our loyalty, how much they can charge us for something that isn't even new, just a little bit newer. And listen, I'm not here to crap on Mario Kart. I actually really like Mario Kart. I do. It's one of those comfort games that's always been there, and it's attached to so many fond memories of playing with friends and family. But even though it looks fun, when that's the flagship title for a brand new console launch, I don't know, I personally just couldn't get behind the hype. It feels kind of boring.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for saying this. This is probably the #1 thing that I will 100% agree on. The launch library for the Switch 2 is so underwhelming, right? Why is Metroid Prime 4 not released with this Switch? Why is Donkey Kong Bonanza not a release title for the Switch 2? Right? I understand they might be pushing the releases out a little bit to kind of spread their profit income over the course of the year. I get it. Oh my goodness, if Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4 had been launch titles with the Switch 2, this console would have gone crazy. I do not like, and you're again, I'm gonna lose some of you. I do not really like Mario Kart games. They're not my style. I'm not into racing games and sports games. That's just not me. I own it and I play it because yes, I do like to review them, and I take off my own perspective when I review a game like that. I just did my 1-minute review for it and I gave it a rave review. It's when you take off your dislike for that type of game and you look at the mechanics and the actual gameplay, what it's adding, what it's doing. Yes, it is a great game. It's just not for me. But oh my goodness, if I couldn't agree with you more.
Safe, predictable. Nintendo isn't asking, hey, what's possible here? They're asking, what can we get away with? Because $80 for Mario Kart World, that's not just a new number. It's a shift in how this industry treats its players. And what surprises me, even though it shouldn't at this point, is that it's Nintendo, of all companies, ushering in this new pricing standard. This wasn't them.
I don't know that I agree with that, because other games have been $70, $80 already. I want to say, and you guys can disagree, but I want to say this has been an industry standard for a while now, whether we have seen it with our own eyes or not. deluxe editions, special editions, right? You give us an extra $20, $30, you pay $90 to $100 for the game, you'll get a couple skins and maybe a season pass, right? Ooh. Ooh, woohoo. So I want to argue that the industry has already been doing this. Now, yes, this is one of the most expensive games to have been sold without a deluxe edition, without all those extra features already packed in, so saith Nintendo. But I foresee, and this is where I'm gonna give a little bit of an olive branch to Nintendo here. I already foresee that a lot of the map packs and things that are going to come for this are going to be included with the online membership. And since every company has its own online membership, I don't fault Nintendo for doing it, right? It's what, $50 a month for the higher tier, $20 for the lower tier to play online. $50 a year gives you online access, lets you play and I'm pretty sure, knowing the way they did the other Mario Kart, the map packs are going to be included in that. So for me, I'm looking at the future. I can foresee why maybe they did $80 because now they got to pay for the future content release and stuff. And I get that. But the problem is that's not stated anywhere. And the difference between this and say a deluxe edition is the deluxe edition states it. The deluxe edition that you paid $80 for says season pass. The season pass says 2 expansions coming down the line. Mario Kart doesn't do that. Mario Kart doesn't say, hey, here's the game at $80. We will release future content to kind of flesh out this world, flesh out the tracks, flesh out the stadium that you're playing in. None of that is stated. It is just, here's your game for $80, box price, go. And I think that's the mistake Nintendo made. And that's why I say, I don't think that Nintendo is necessarily the first and the ones to do this first. I think they're the first ones to make the mistake of not explaining why. And everybody, myself included, even when I did my review, I said, I don't think it's worth that extra $80 right now because it's just Mario Kart. It's the same thing you've been playing with now a free roam thing. And like I said, the knockout race mode, which is actually kind of fun. All that is still there, but why? But was that worth $20 more? No. Had you boxed this at $50, $60 and said, hey, here's Mario Kart 8 with some upgrades, I think a lot of people would have been more okay with it because you're paying for the game and you're getting these extra modes that were not included in the previous. It would have felt like that natural evolution. I argue this has always been the norm, unfortunately, because of deluxe and special editions and all this, right? Think of this. You pay an extra $20 and you get 5 days early access. You did not pay extra $20 for 5 days early access. You paid an extra $20. Congratulations. You just get to play on the servers, which are already ready to go and could be turned on at any time. And they kind of duped you. So that's my perspective on the increase for the Mario Kart cost.
Reluctantly following a trend that I know was inevitable, but this was them leading the charge, setting a precedent, establishing $80 as the new normal, and not with some expansive, genre-pushing new experience, but with an exact game formula that we've literally seen 16 times at this point. And
Correct.
It makes you
Like
ask,
I said,
why?
if it was
Because
60 with the
meanwhile,
evolutions,
I'm
it would have been great.
looking at games like Helldivers 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Remnant 2, Clair Obscur, Baldur's Gate 3, and so many more. Games that have real creative vision, some with massive campaigns, even some with fleshed out co-op systems, launching at or below $60.
Yes.
And many of these games are taking
agree.
risks and
Clair
really
Obscur,
pushing boundaries, and somehow they're still finding a way to be more accessible. So when Nintendo drops a new console and leads with yet another Mario Kart at a higher price than ever before, it doesn't feel like they're honoring their legacy. It feels like they're monetizing it, like they're using it against us. Actually kind of feels like a slap in the face that stings pretty badly. And yes, to be fair, the Switch 2 is a technical upgrade.
I would like to point out how hilarious it is to me that she's playing Pal World in the background as she talks about Nintendo, because I have a feeling we know where one of her arguments for Nintendo is gonna go is the Pal World situation.
4K visuals, better battery, smoother performance, more storage, it's all technically better on paper, but it doesn't feel like a new era. It seems like a slightly fancier version of something that we already had, and for me personally, this realization of who Nintendo is not like a sudden moment of awakening. I've quietly been stepping back from them for a while now, and not because I stopped loving their games, but because I started seeing the patterns, the choices, the shifts. And at this point, it's pretty clear that this Switch 2 release is not just about a new price tag or a genuine attempt at launching something new, it's just another step in the same pattern that's been repeating for years. Back in the day, this used to be the company that took risks, that made magic, that redefined entire genres and invited us into something truly special. But now, kind of just seems like they're relying on the fact that we'll show
Look
up
at that
no
smile.
matter
He
what,
was so
even though
happy.
they are so often very anti-consumer. It's because they know our nostalgia runs incredibly deep, and the more I've seen it, the harder it has been to unsee. Nintendo has mastered something I can only describe as weaponized nostalgia. They've turned our childhood memories into a soulless business model, and the part that really hurts is that it works. It worked on me for so long. I've been a Nintendo fangirl who's bought the remakes, re-releases, and updated ports, even though I knew deep down that what they were offering was not anything new. And looking back on it, I don't know, I guess it was because I didn't feel like I was buying a game. It felt like I was buying a memory. And
Okay, so I wanna key in on this because this is one of the points that I don't agree with totally. The reason is because every company has done this, whether it's Nintendo, Capcom. How many times has Capcom re-released Resident Evil 4 before the remake? How many times has Bethesda released Skyrim? How many times have they released all these games, right? This is a trend in the industry that's been around for a long time. Even the original Super Nintendo did this, right? You had Mario 1 and 2 on the NES, and then in Super Mario, they had the, what was it, Mario All-Stars, which had the collection of all the previous games. So this is something that has always been there. So I don't agree necessarily that this specific situation is them weaponizing. What I think this is saying, hey, we now have this, we'll just use this example, right? We now have the DS, the 3DS, and if you joined Nintendo's family now with the 3DS, you're not going to possibly have an N64. So you might have missed this era of gaming. So we're going to re-release... My boys are back there talking to each other, sorry. So we're going to re-release this game for this new generation to play it. All you original players, obviously, if you want to get it, you can, and they do bank on some of those original players to do it 100% because there is that nostalgia berry. But the fact is, that's not necessarily the case, right? This is also to get a new audience to join. Same thing with, what was it? Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze? Was it Tropical Freeze? Was that the one on the Wii U? The reason I bought that for my Switch is because I never had the Wii U. I had no interest in the Wii U when it came out. It wasn't the kind of system I was looking for. I was into, my Xbox at the time. So for me, I missed it. I never got to play Tropical Freeze, and I love Donkey Kong. So for me, that was an easy pickup because now I have something that I'm not going to have access to because I don't plan on going back and buying a Wii U, but now I have access to it on my Switch. Yes, I do agree. Re-releasing these games for the same price or more is a little scummy. I totally agree with you there. That's the point I will 100% say, yes, that is kind of trash. If you're going to re-release a game that's 10 years old, give me a 10-year discount, right? You can still make money on something that is, like she said, feeding off of our nostalgia and making it cost less, right? If you re-released, for example, Ocarina of Time on the Switch with no upgrades, no remastering, just a flat port of the game as a physical game that I can grab off my shelf, not in the little e-store or whatever it's called, the virtual console, why would I have to pay a full $60 for that? Let me buy that for like $15. Right now I have it in my library for my newer system because I don't have an N64 and I can play it with my new stuff. That I'm okay with. So just so I can kind of pipe in my opinion here, this is one of the points when I said I have a feeling there's some points I don't agree with. This was the first point that she got to that I didn't agree with, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I'm okay with this because every company has done it since gaming began, as long as we can understand why they do. And obviously, again, it's a business, they want to make money, I get it, but it's also because I can't play Ocarina of Time if I have the junky N64 cartridge or if I miss that generation of gaming. So that's my opinion. And again, I know not everyone agrees with that. There are people out there like, no, it's just I need to make my money, and I get that. Yes, they do, but I'm trying to look at it again. I'm trying to look at it from a more unbiased, on the fence, let me see how both sides are looking at it situation.
And Nintendo knows that. They know that we remember how it felt to blast through Alien Worlds and Metroid Prime, or how it felt to spend hours raising your perfect Nintendog like it was your actual childhood pet. They know we feel these titles in a way that goes beyond gameplay. And they have perfected the art of re-releasing titles, sometimes only mildly updated, at full price, locking legacy content behind paywalls and subscriptions, and offering nostalgia not as a gift, but as a heartless transaction. And just a quick side note that I found out while I was writing out this video. Do you want to talk about Heartless? Because I just found out that Nintendo actually replaced the voice actress for Princess Peach after 18 years. And they didn't even tell her. She found out with the rest of the world when the new Mario Kart game came out. That's actually insane. But anyway, to get back on track.
A lot of voice actors over the last year have been let go, replaced by numerous companies because of either AI or the strike. I don't want to get into that whole situation because that is a whole other topic to talk about, but it's unfortunate, but that's the world of work, right? People get let go, people get laid off, changes are made. I've been laid off twice in my life because of corporate restructuring and getting outsourced to the Philippines. So I empathize, but it's just unfortunately the way corporate America is. And apparently so it can happen overseas as well.
There's always been a huge difference between celebrating fan love and exploiting it. And for me, it seems like Nintendo has lived long enough to finally see themselves become the villain. So moving on from the Switch to release, at some point I started looking at how Nintendo treats the people who love their games. And what I found honestly broke my heart a little bit, because Nintendo doesn't just protect its legacy, they police it. Let's start with content creators. This is nothing new. For many years
They've
now,
been like this for
Nintendo
a
has
long
been going
time.
after them. Streamers, YouTubers, musicians, for doing what, honestly, most other gaming companies celebrate, sharing their love for the brand and its
I
IP.
agree.
Somehow,
This
I
is
managed
unfortunate.
to kind of turn a blind eye to most of this until the Point Crow situation. He was a YouTuber who was making these really incredible Breath of the Wild mod videos. Fun, creative, and totally original. And then one day, Nintendo claimed and struck 27 videos. No warning, no conversation, just straight up attacked. And it wasn't just his Breath of the Wild mods, it was any content that featured them, including other creators who had collaborated with him. It all got wiped out like a purge. And it made me pause because these weren't leaks and they weren't made to be malicious. It really was just fan content that was made out of love. And Nintendo really cracked down on it like it was a threat. And this was not an isolated case. One that has really stuck with me was Gilvasunner. And if you didn't know, Gilvasunner's channel used to be one of the only places online where you could find full Nintendo soundtracks. For years, Nintendo basically had these locked up very tight unless you were able to purchase a physical CD from Nintendo themselves. They weren't on Spotify, Apple Music, Nintendo's YouTube channel, no official platform to listen to any of it. And Gilva wasn't even trying to profit from this. There were no ads or monetization, just the original music uploaded for fans who wanted to relive the moments those songs came from. It was really a gift to the community. And then it was gone. Nintendo initially sent over 1,300 takedown notices, and after that, it was followed by another 2,200. The entire channel was essentially wiped out, and Gilva closed up shop. And I know this might sound a little bit dramatic, but that was kind of a big turning point for me when it came to how I viewed them. Just a little side note / confession, but as a former Disney adult who has learned the error of her ways, I feel pretty qualified to say this. Nintendo really is the Disney of gaming. They're wholesome on the surface, very full of magic and memories, but underneath there's a very quiet, corporate, malicious control. And both companies know how to tug at your childhood heartstrings while handing out copyright strikes and ulterior motives on the side. At the time I was watching this unfold, the more I sat with what happened to Gilvasunner, the more it made me wonder, why is Nintendo's music so locked away to begin with? These soundtracks have some of the most iconic songs in gaming. They were emotional, timeless, and they were very deeply personal for so many of us. And like I said earlier, Animal Crossing Wild World was my comfort game. And yet, at the time, there was basically no way for me to go listen to it legally. It felt like Nintendo had locked away their history in a vault, and they just would not let anyone open it up. And from there, I started noticing so many other examples. Fan games getting shut down, community passion projects being wiped out, and listen, I get it. IP protection is legally within their right, but it all just felt like they were going out of their
It
way to
feels
crack down on
malicious.
this,
It
acting
does.
very
I
aggressive,
agree.
cold, and even
So I totally agree, and this is actually one of the reasons why I initially wanted to do a channel on the Switch and Nintendo as a whole starting in 2020. And the problem was I had heard how aggressive Nintendo can be at locking down on people using content from Nintendo related products. And that scared me. It 100% scared me away from making content related to the Switch, related to gaming, because it's like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with that, right? I'm tiny. In the world of YouTube, I'm an ant. So if they come after me, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I started the channel, a couple years ago, made a couple of videos to test out what I could do, try to learn some video content creation, try to learn video editing, learn how to do this. And the whole time I'm thinking, I have to be super careful with what content I can show or talk about, because I don't know when Nintendo might come at me with the hammer. And that scares me. And I 100% agree with her, analysis that other companies are utilizing YouTubers as basically free advertising. Why doesn't Nintendo embrace that? Why is Nintendo so desperate to basically keep everything that makes their company and their games so loved by people locked behind these doors that nobody else can enjoy? And that's a problem. It really is. Like, I didn't even know about this guy's music channel. I mean, I understand, unfortunately, because it is music, it's its own topic. I still think the whole concept of not being able to play music on a video is stupid. It's, whatever. But it's like, I watch beat 'em ups, right? Wood, and he does strictly Switch related content, Nintendo 100%, and I haven't heard of any issues with his. And honestly, because I've been watching him, that's what kind of kickstarted me to want to try this channel and get this channel going, is like, he seems to be making it work, so it can happen. But that fear shouldn't be there, right? If I made a channel 100% about, let's say, Capcom or Bethesda, yeah, there might be some struggles. I've seen them take down some creators who make fan games. They do cease and desist on fan games because, like, hey, we're secretly making our own Resident Evil 2. Stop making yours. I get that. But I don't know that they would say, hey, you're doing a retrospective on Resident Evil. Knock it off. I don't think they would do that, because for them, it's like, hey, cool, they're bringing more light to our series. They're going to make us more sales. I don't think we should be afraid of a company doing that. And Nintendo seems to want to do that a lot. Whatever the reason may be, like she said, she's 100% correct. They do have IP protection. They do have the ability to do these strikes when it is, their content being used or utilized in a non-react, non-review, whatever that the copyright thing. I know it, but you know what I mean. That can be frustrating. So 100% I agree with her here. Nintendo needs to start embracing content creators as advertisement and not seeing them as adversaries.
Heartless, especially when you look around at many other companies, Sega, Capcom, Xbox, PlayStation, even some indie studios, and you see them amplifying creators, lifting them up, letting the fans be a part of the legacy. But Nintendo doesn't really do that. They continue to pull the plug again and again, and over time I started wondering if maybe I had just been giving them the benefit of the doubt simply because I grew up loving them.
They believe they don't need it.
At this point, after the Guiltless Honor takedown, I had already started to feel uneasy. The creator takedowns, the fan projects, the legacy content, it was all feeling a lot more controlling than caring. But the moment that truly stopped me in my tracks was when I heard the story of Gary Bowser. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know about any of this until I listened to an episode of Darknet Diaries, which, by the way, Jack does an incredible job explaining all of this. I'll link it in the description for you. Now, I obviously knew at this point Nintendo could be very protective of their IP, but this was on a whole other level. Gary was a part of a group called Team Executor, and what they did was build and sell mod chips, little pieces of hardware that you could install in your Nintendo consoles to run homebrew apps, custom firmware, and yes, pirated games. But people also use those mods for stuff that wasn't necessarily piracy. They used it to run backups of games they already owned, or just experiment with the system for their own personal use, things that were really never going to be available through Nintendo directly. Gary essentially became the fall guy for the entire organization, and Nintendo came down on him in a way that was very extreme. In 2020, Gary was arrested at gunpoint in the Dominican Republic and extradited to the US. By 2022, he'd been sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay $14.5 million in damages, $4.5 million in restitution, and then another $10 million from a civil suit. And after he got out early, he still owed all of it. And he started paying Nintendo back 25 to 30% of his monthly income, which at one point was just $25 a month from his prison library job. He'll basically be paying them for the rest of his life. When I heard that, my stomach dropped. I genuinely felt heartbroken for him.
So,
Yes.
so, wow. I'm conflicted about that because if you're selling a mod chip which allows you to hack a system, and I don't know if in the terms of service it says anywhere in the Switch's terms and service you're not allowed to do that, then you've broken the TOS. That's one side of me. That is the one part of me. Again, I'm trying to sit on the fence here. That's the one side of me that's like, okay, Nintendo, notice that you're violating a terms of service. You're providing that service to other users to violate their use policy. You're providing a way for them to pirate games. You're giving them the tools that they need to do this, right? One of the things I had heard, and I don't know how true this is, don't take this with a massive grain of salt, but they're not always necessarily looking for the person who has the ROMs. It's the person who's giving the ROMs. That's who they want. So if you're the guy giving the software, giving the hardware, giving the things, the tools to do this, yeah, that's who they want. So that's one side. The other side of me is, yeah, you kind of just ruined this guy's life because of what he was doing. What was what he was doing okay, ethically, morally? That's up to us to decide, right? It's my system. I should be able to do to it whatever I want. If I want to hack it and do stupid things and homebrew my own system, I should have that right? I remember they just made that that update to their use terms that said that if they detect that you're homebrewing and stuff, they will brick your Switch. I remember that controversy. That was only a couple months ago that I had heard about that. So I'm conflicted here because what he did morally and ethically on one hand is wrong, but on the other hand is right. It's my device. I should have the right to do whatever I want with it. If I want to hack the hell out of it and mod it, that's my prerogative. I bought it. But on the other hand, you are providing the tools to allow people to do illegal things such as pirate games and stuff like that. So is it necessarily worth 3 years of your life being arrested at gunpoint and literally paying out of your pocket for the rest of your life? No, I think that's a bit extreme. But was that the DA who did that? Was that the judge who ordered that? Was that what Nintendo asked for? I don't know those details, right? That's usually something that we would have to look into, because Nintendo comes to the table saying, this is what we believe to have happened. The prosecution has then the job of saying, this is what we want to pursue, this is what we're going to prove, and it's up to the judge and sometimes even a jury to decide what that sentencing and stuff will be. Right, the jury, and especially like in civil cases, they can say we recommend paying out X amount of money. The judge will then obviously make changes based on local jurisdictions and go from there. The DA, if it's a criminal case, will often suggest sentencing to the judge, but the judge at the end of the day is the one who makes that final call of what the sentencing will be. So my curious take on this is, why did the judge or the jury feel that that extreme of a sentence was necessary? What is behind the curtain that I don't know? That's why I'm saying I'm on the fence here, because I don't know all the details. I do know some of courtroom proceedings. I did do training as a paralegal a long time ago. So it's like I kind of know some of that stuff, right? The DA, the prosecution can come in and say, this is what we think should happen. This is what we want to happen. At the end of the day, it's up to the judge to confirm whether they agree with that based on law, based on stuff like that, and based on case law from previous cases. Why was his punishment so severe? What do we not know? What do I not know? So that's my case. So to reiterate, TLDR, a bit extreme. Ethically and morally, you're on both sides. It's my Switch, let me do what I want. But also you're providing tools to do something that may be against a use policy or a use agreement. I don't know. I'd have to research that more. But yeah, on the surface, it sounds a bit crazy that all this poor guy's going through all that, but is he really a poor guy, or did he make choices that were in a legal sense not okay, and he now has to pay the price for that? That's kind of where me, as being someone who wants to sit that fence as much as possible, has to think about.
What he and the rest of the team were doing was illegal, and they did profit off of it, but Gary was just one man. And are we really saying the punishment fits the crime here? Because whatever legal lines were crossed, this felt less like justice and more like hatred and wrath. And not just for what he did, but for daring to even touch Nintendo's closed system. And the part that really got me with this is Nintendo tried to get Sony and Microsoft to back them up here, to join the lawsuit and make it a united front against piracy. Both companies said no. Both Sony and Xbox, billion-dollar publishers in their own right, refused to be a part of it. Even they seemed to think that it was too far. And again, I am not here to outright defend piracy, really. There's a whole conversation to be had about access, preservation,
access tools for
ethics,
those? He had nothing to do with those two companies? I have no idea.
Predatory. Nintendo did not just want to stop Gary from what he was doing, they wanted to make him an example. And for me, this was the defining moment when I knew Nintendo was no longer the company that I had loved for decades. And if you thought Gary Bowser's case was just a one-off or a legal overreach in a rare situation, it wasn't. Because not long after that, Nintendo set its sights on something much bigger and arguably much more telling. You might have already guessed it, but I'm talking about Palworld.
Yeah,
you probably remember
I was waiting for this.
A very weird, chaotic blend of Pokemon-style creature collecting and open-world survival mechanics. It was very messy, it was wild, but it was so much fun. People were very obsessed, myself included. And yes, come on, it clearly was inspired by Pokemon. That's not a secret. You could throw a spear, you could collect little pals, you ride them, you battle them. It was Pokemon adjacent, absolutely. But here's the thing. It wasn't a copy. The characters were different. The art direction, tone, many mechanics were different. It took a very familiar genre and gave it a bold, slightly unhinged twist. And for the first time in years, fans were saying, why doesn't Nintendo try stuff like this? Instead of taking that feedback in stride, instead of rising to the challenge, listening, learning, evolving, Nintendo did what they've been doing for a while now. They sued. Together with the Pokemon Company, they filed a patent infringement lawsuit against the Palworld dev team. Not over character design, surprisingly, not even over branding, but over mechanics.
Yeah,
things like throwing a Pal Spear to catch creatures, using them in combat, riding them across the world. And because of all of this, the Palworld team had to actually go in and change all of those features. They stripped out mechanics that players loved, not because they were unethical, but because they simply couldn't defend themselves against a legal juggernaut. And just like with the Gary Bowser case, Nintendo tried to bring other companies into the fight. Sony and Microsoft were reportedly approached to back them again here.
They're not going to, because Pokemon's not their IP. They don't care about it.
All of this says a lot, because this could have been a big moment for Nintendo. A wake-up call, an opportunity for them to ask, what is it that people are...
I'm guessing the reason why Microsoft and Sony aren't going to join this is because Pokemon is an association with Nintendo, almost 100%. Pokemon has been publishing, Nintendo's been publishing Pokemon for Game Freak for what, 1996, 1998 till now. What do Microsoft and Sony have to do with it? They have no legal right to say that this company, Palworld is made by, has utilized any of their assets or any of their mechanical IP infringement. It doesn't exist for them, so why would they join it? Do I agree with it? It's difficult, right? The concept of throwing a ball to catch something, like I can go outside and throw a ball and catch something, right? I could do that right now. It'd be a little difficult because Pokemon aren't real, but you get my point, right? I could go outside and throw a net and catch a bird. I can go outside and throw a net and catch one of the stray cats that live out in our neighborhood. So it's like throwing something to catch something isn't necessarily a bizarre concept. But again, when you have to play devil's advocate and look at both sides, what do you associate? If I say I'm going to throw a ball and catch something, the first thing that almost the entirety of society is going to think about is Pokemon. That is a mechanic that Pokemon has basically lived on since the original games, the anime and everything. Is it right to sue? No. Do I think it should have been something a bit more subtle, like maybe a cease and desist saying, hey, well, please stop doing this, please change the mechanics so we don't have to go to that point? Maybe that would have been a little bit more appropriate. But this is opening up that whole concept of, should game mechanics be something that you can protect? And I will 100% say no. I'm a huge board gamer. I love board games. And you know what's something you can't do in the board game community? You cannot copyright a mechanic in a board game, right? You can't copyright rolling a dice. You can't copyright roll to move. You can't copyright drawing 6 cards. You can't copyright these things. These types of mechanics cannot be copyrighted to prevent other companies from doing it. So why is it not the same for video games? Why the heck is the Nemesis system locked away with a company that's not using it till like what, 2036? How ridiculous is that as a concept, that no other game can have the Nemesis system because that stupid company decided, we're gonna IP that, make it ours. No one else can use it. Imagine a game, let's imagine Star Wars Outlaws. I'm trying to think of the most recent Star Wars game. Or Jedi Knight, The Fallen Order. Imagine a Nemesis system in that, where you're battling Sith or Outlaws or Stormtroopers, and over time they come back and they want to fight you and they get better. Like, imagine in Jedi Fallen Order, you fight a Sith or a Sith apprentice and he comes back and he's stronger, he's learned new things. Yeah, he might have a mechanical arm because you chopped it off in the first battle. How mind-blowingly fun would that have been? But no, it's tied to 2 Mordor games, and we don't even know if another one's going to happen. We don't know what's happening with that system. So I 100% agree that it should not be allowed to copyright mechanics in video games. It should be an open system for everyone. That way, like what we're saying here, competition can breed ingenuity. However, on the flip side, it is allowed, it is copyrighted, and if it is infringed, they do have a right to go after that. So it's very murky water.
Are responding to. Why are they so excited about this? What can we learn from this? But instead of innovation, they chose litigation. And to me, it was not a stand for creativity or IP protection. The Pokemon formula has been around for literally 30 years. We all know what it is and where it comes from. And Palworld was not going to change that. No. This was Nintendo being a bully and swinging at anything that threatened the comfort of their complacency. They had an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to take advantage of someone already laying the groundwork for them, but instead, they chose violence. And after everything, the creator takedowns, the lawsuits, the silencing of innovation, you think maybe Nintendo would at least try to get one thing right: their legacy. I remember when Nintendo Online was first announced. It sounded like such a win, a way to legally revisit classic titles, play old favorites, dive back into the library that built up this brand. And at first, I was so hopeful, but the reality has been frustrating at best. Games get added randomly. Some months it's not much, other months it's one obscure NES title no one really asked for.
Correct.
Entire consoles like Game Boy Advance or N64 still feel incomplete, and sometimes titles will just disappear without warning or explanation. They're just gone. And
this is why people pirate your games, though, Nintendo. This is exactly why. As much as you hate it and you disagree with it, this is why people are pirating your games. You're locking them behind arbitrary systems that we either have to engage with to get access to, or you remove them from any method that we can play them. I still have my original Golden Sun Game Boy Advance cartridges in my room. I downloaded a ROM on my phone so I could play it on my phone because I don't have a Game Boy Advance anymore. My Game Boy Advance died years ago, and I don't really want to spend a stupid amount to get another one. I would love to get a Game Boy SP just so I could, play that. I have Pokemon Red, Pokemon Sapphire. I have Pokemon, Fire Red. I have the 2 Golden Sun games, right? And I'd love to play those games, but I can't. So I have to emulate them. Now, I'm legally emulating them because I own the physical copies. They're in my room right now. But the fact that I have to go through all that trouble to just play a game that's, X years old because you won't provide any other way for me to play it, this is your fault in a way. Piracy is wrong. We all agree. But if the best way to combat piracy is to provide what people feel needs to be pirated. If you provide the systems, the methods for us to play these games, I don't have to, well, not me personally, again, because I have the games, but people don't have to pirate them. It's as simple as that. The Virtual Console seemed like the perfect way to do this. Here's these games from this old era, go, enjoy, but you're adding things I've never heard of. You're adding games I don't care about. You don't have the games that I do remember from my childhood that I loved. Like, where's the Game Boy Advance version of Lord of the Rings and the Return of the King? It's basically a Diablo Light, and it is so much fun. Can't play it because you haven't added it to the Virtual Console. And to her point, some months you don't even add anything. I'm paying for this service, so give me that service. And if you don't want to, that's fine. that's your choice. But then guess what I have to do? Again, not me personally, but what people feel they have to do is now they have to pirate it, because when they want to play it, that's the only way they can. It's so simple to combat piracy. Provide what people are pirating. If you provide it yourself, then you don't have to worry about it.
And now, with the launch of the Switch 2, I thought maybe they would just try to clean things up a bit. GameCube has finally joined the retro lineup, which is very
There's
awesome.
like, what, 4
but they
games in
only
there?
added 3 games at launch.
3.
Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX.
And I don't care about F-Zero.
Yeah, that's a cool trio, I guess, but it's also pretty bare bones for a console with so many legendary titles. And yes, I know more are coming, but why launch with so few? Why not take the easy win here and give your fans what they've been begging you for years? Beyond the catalog, the performance isn't always there either. Sometimes there's lag, some games have awkward control schemes, others don't support cloud saves. It doesn't really feel like a premium service. It feels like something Nintendo begrudgingly maintains, and definitely not
Correct.
something
It
that
does.
they can be proud of. The thing is I've always wanted to support something like this. I actually am very happy to pay to play these games legally. I want to revisit the titles that
Yep.
shaped me in a clean, easy way, but Nintendo has made it so hard. It's like they're sitting on this treasure trove of nostalgia, this very beautiful, powerful legacy, and instead of sharing it or celebrating it with us, they keep it to themselves and withhold it. They kind of hold it over us like drugs, honestly, banking on the fact that we'll continue to play the part of the willing addicts who will be so happy for even the tiniest drop. It really is heartbreaking, but at this point, I'm not even really mad about it. I'm just tired and maybe still a little bit sad. Now again, to be clear, this video is not meant to shame anybody. If you bought the Switch 2 or you're a part of Nintendo Online and you're loving it, I think that's great. Truly, I am not here to steal joy away from anyone. This video really is just to talk about how I can't ignore how much my own relationship with Nintendo has changed over the years. And I don't love them anymore. Not the company, not like I used to. And that's difficult to say out loud because I grew up on these games. I spent summers chasing stars in Mario 64, winters decorating my Animal Crossing home, racing my siblings in Mario Kart, riding Epona across Hyrule Field like it was the most magical thing in the world. And for me, these were not just games. They were a part of my childhood. And that's why all of this hurts so much, because the company that once led with a full heart and love for gaming feels like it's running on autopilot, giving us the absolute bare minimum.
I
Comfortable, safe,
Autopilot's
lazy,
a good way to put it.
greedy. We're getting less and paying more. And look, the industry as a whole is a bit of a mess right now, but it's still fair for us to ask for better, to feel valued as customers, to want these companies to care. And for a long time, I really believed that Nintendo did, that they were different, that they stood for something. But now it's hard to see how that could still be true. I always joke that my relationship with Nintendo is super toxic because even after all of this, even after how I've seen how they treat their consumers and fans, part of me still hopes that they'll change because they could. It really would be
They
so
could.
easy. If
It's
they
easy.
wanted to, they could be the company that supports creators instead of silencing them, shares their legacy instead of locking it away, prioritizes joy over control, and evolves instead of punishing innovation. I really would love nothing more than to fall back in love with them. But right now, it just seems like Nintendo is going to keep being Nintendo, just very stuck and too happy to stay that way. The love that I once had for them was so real and the magic really mattered, but the company behind that magic, it feels further away than ever. If you made it to the end of this video, seriously, thank you so much, and I would love to hear your story. What made you fall in love with Nintendo? Are you still in love with them? Or have you also had a bit of a breakup with them like me? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
So no, I like I was saying, I agree with a lot of her points. It's just difficult for me because again, I look at things from both perspectives. I can understand where a company like Nintendo is coming from when they make these decisions to go after a creator or something. I don't necessarily agree with it. I do think Nintendo does need to evolve its look on content creation, right? If someone makes a fan film of Zelda, instead of crushing it and making it stop, why not embrace it? Why not utilize the developer or the creator behind that to make an official thing for Nintendo, right? Celebrate this. I don't remember what company it was, but there was a company where a fan had been making a fan-made game, and so they just hired that person to make something for them. And like, that's what we should see. That's where we should be going with the industry, right? You have developers who are making these games for you, and you have fans who are doing more for you than you could even realize, right? Fan videos, fan spin-offs, stuff like that. And instead of embracing that, you're like, no, not allowed, how dare you, that's my IP, that's my property. And yes, you are correct, and again, that's the difficult part, is you are correct, but at the end of the day, that's more advertising, that's more exposure for you. And if you prop them and celebrate them and show off the hard work that these people are doing, you not only bring more light to the product that you want to sell, but it also just makes you look better, and it makes you look a lot more like wholesome, like she's saying, right? That wholesomeness is missing now, right? I still don't think you're anywhere near to the level that we've gone with Blizzard. I think Blizzard is the poster boy of a company basically nosediving into the ground with credibility, and I don't think Nintendo's anywhere close to that level. But I do see from her points where it does look like Nintendo is starting to come down from the high that they've had in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and hopefully they can come back, right? Make a content creator program where maybe people can submit videos and fan films and things, and you can show them off. Leave people alone unless they are like I was saying, the guy who's literally putting music, Nintendo music on YouTube, that's a difficult one because it is their property, it is their licensing. But if his channel wasn't monetized and his channel wasn't making money, he had never turned on ads, it's a zero gain for him, then who cares? That I felt was a little bit much. So anyways, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? As always, whenever someone does a react, you always have to give credit to the original creator, right? The background NPC. She did a phenomenal job. Her points are very well laid out. She spoke her mind. She let us know how she felt. I can tell she loves Nintendo, but I can also tell, like me, and like many people who are in the Nintendo space, a lot of us are looking at them like, what are you doing? What is your plan here? What is your end game? Because you're making us not feel like part of the Nintendo family. You're making us feel like a consumer, and that's the change a lot of us aren't looking for anymore. So leave your comments down below. Give her a shout out, right? Go to her channel, like, subscribe. This video for her is doing phenomenal. Last time I checked, it was like 500,000 views. Awesome job to her. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. Until next time, have a good day.